almost did not go that evening. It felt strange, like I was stepping into something I did not fully understand yet. But when my girlfriend Emily called me, her voice was tired and worried. She said her mom was not feeling well and asked if I could stop by to check on her because Emily was stuck at work late. I told her yes without thinking much. At that time, it felt like the right thing to do. Her mom's house was quiet when I arrived. The sun was going down, and the sky looked soft and orange. I parked in the driveway and sat in the car for a moment, just breathing. I had been to this house many times before, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the silence, or maybe it was the feeling in my chest that I could not explain. I knocked on the door, and after a few seconds it opened slowly. There she was. Her name was Laura. She looked tired, but she still gave me a gentle smile. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore a simple sweater, like she had been resting all day. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the house had grown too big for her. She thanked me for coming in a soft voice and stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like tea and clean laundry. Everything was neat, but it felt lonely. I asked her how she was feeling, and she said she was okay, just a little weak and dizzy earlier. She tried to sound calm, but I could hear something else under her words. It sounded like she did not want to be alone. We sat in the living room. I stayed on the edge of the couch, not wanting to take too much space. She sat across from me, holding a warm mug with both hands. We talked about simple things at first. I told her Emily said hello and would come by the next day. Laura nodded and smiled, but her eyes stayed on me a second longer than needed. I asked if she had eaten, and she shook her head. So I went into the kitchen and made her some soup from what I found in the fridge. It felt natural, like something I should do. When I brought it to her, she looked surprised. She said no one had cooked for her in a long time. That stayed with me. I did not know why, but it made my chest feel heavy. She ate slowly while I sat there, watching to make sure she was okay. The room was quiet except for the sound of the spoon touching the bowl. Every now and then, our eyes met, and she looked away quickly. I told myself it was nothing, just an awkward moment, but the air felt thick, like something unspoken was sitting between us. After a while, she said she felt better and thanked me again. She told me I was a good man and that Emily was lucky to have me. Hearing that from her meant more than I expected. I felt seen in a way that surprised me. I smiled and said I was just doing what anyone would do. I checked the time and stood up, telling her I should head out. It was getting late, and I did not want Emily to worry. Laura stood up too, but slower this time. She walked me to the door. When I reached for my jacket, she stopped speaking. The silence stretched between us. I turned to say goodbye, but she was looking at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was not romantic, not exactly. It was something deeper, something lonely. Her hands were clasped together, and she looked like she was thinking very hard about what to say. Then she spoke. Her voice was quiet, almost unsure. She asked if I could stay. At first, I thought I heard her wrong. I asked her to repeat it, and she did. She said she did not feel well being alone tonight. She said the house felt too quiet, and her thoughts got heavy at night. She said she trusted me. My heart started beating faster. 1,000 thoughts rushed through my mind. Emily. The situation. How this might look. How it felt. I did not know what to say. I cared about Emily deeply, and I respected her mom. But there was something in Laura's eyes that made it hard to walk away. I stood there, frozen, with my jacket half on. The door was still open behind me, and the cool night air touched my back. Inside, the house felt warm and still. She waited for my answer, not moving, not pushing, just waiting. In that moment, I knew that whatever I decided would change something. I just did not know what yet. I did not answer right away. I stood there, feeling the weight of her words sink into me. Staying the night sounded simple when she said it, but my mind kept racing. I thought about Emily trusting me. I thought about how this house was not just any place. It was her home, her family. Nothing about this felt small. Laura noticed my hesitation. She quickly said I could say no, that she did not want to put me in a bad spot. She smiled again, but this time it looked forced, like she was trying to hide how much it mattered. That made it harder. I was not afraid of staying. I was afraid of what leaving might mean for her tonight. I told her I could stay for a while, just to make sure she was okay. The relief on her face was instant. She nodded and thanked me again, almost too many times. I took my jacket off and placed it on the chair. The door closed behind us with a soft sound that felt louder than it should have. We went back to the living room. The lights were low, and only one lamp was on. Shadows moved gently on the walls. She sat down slowly and leaned back, looking tired again. I asked if she wanted more tea, and she said yes. Making tea felt like something safe to do, something normal. While the kettle heated, I looked around the kitchen. There were family photos on the fridge. Emily as a child. Laura smiling beside her. A man I guessed was Emily's dad. I wondered where he was now. I never asked. It did not feel like my place. When I brought the tea, Laura thanked me and took a small sip. She closed her eyes for a moment like the warmth helped more than the drink itself. I sat across from her again. We talked softly, like the house was listening. She told me about her day, how she felt dizzy earlier and got scared when no one answered her phone. She admitted she hated asking for help, that she used to be the one everyone leaned on. Now the quiet scared her. I listened, really listened. I did not interrupt. The more she talked, the more I understood that this was not about me staying the night. It was about her not wanting to feel invisible. At some point, she laughed lightly and said Emily always chose good people to keep around. I smiled, but inside I felt a strange mix of pride and discomfort. I was aware of every small movement, every look. I kept reminding myself why I was here. The night grew deeper. Outside, the street was silent. No cars passed. Laura asked if I was tired. I said I was fine. That was not fully true. I felt awake in a way I had not felt in a long time. Alert. Careful. She stood up and said she would try to sleep. She asked if I would stay on the couch. I agreed right away. That felt like the right line not to cross. She nodded and told me where the blankets were. Before walking away, she paused and looked back at me. She said she was really glad I came tonight. I watched her walk down the hallway, and the house felt even quieter after her door closed. I lay down on the couch, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts would not slow down. I kept replaying the moment at the door. Her voice, her eyes, the way she asked. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was just helping someone who needed it. Still, my chest felt tight. I wondered if Emily would understand if she knew. I wondered if I should tell her. I wondered if some things were better left unsaid. Hours passed slowly. I do not know when I fell asleep, but it was light and restless. Every small sound woke me. The house creaked. The air shifted. At some point I heard soft footsteps. I opened my eyes and saw Laura standing at the end of the hallway. She looked confused, like she had just woken up and forgot where she was. She whispered my name to make sure I was there. I sat up and told her I was. She walked closer and said she had a bad dream. She asked if she could sit for a moment. I said yes. She sat on the chair near the couch, holding her arms around herself. She did not touch me. She did not move closer. She just sat there, breathing slowly until her hands stopped shaking. In that quiet moment, I felt something shift again. I realized this night was not over yet, and I had no idea what the morning would bring. The clock on the wall showed a little past 2 in the morning. The house felt frozen in time. Laura sat quietly near me, her hands resting in her lap now. Her breathing was slow again, but she did not get up to go back to her room. I asked her if she felt better. She nodded and said the dream was gone, but the feeling stayed. She told me she dreamed she was calling out and no one answered. Her voice was calm, but the words hit me hard. I told her she was not alone tonight. I was right here. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was trying to understand who I was in that moment. Not just Emily's boyfriend. Not just someone passing through. She said she did not want to go back to bed yet. The room felt safer with someone else awake. I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. I sat up straighter on the couch, giving her my full attention. We talked in low voices about small things, about movies she liked, about music from when she was younger, about how quiet the neighborhood had become over the years. She asked me about my childhood. No one ever asked me that in this house before. I told her about growing up in a small place, about my mom, about how I learned early to take care of myself. She listened closely, not interrupting. When I finished, she said she could see why Emily loved me, that I carried a calm strength. That word stayed with me. Strength. I did not feel strong in that moment. I felt careful, like I was standing near the edge of something I could not see clearly. I reminded myself again where I was and why. After a while, she stood up and said she should try to sleep again. I stood too, just in case she needed help. She hesitated, then asked if I could walk her to her room. The hallway felt longer than before. The light from the living room did not reach far. When we reached her door, she stopped. She thanked me again for staying. She said she did not know what she would have done if she had been alone all night. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were full. I told her she could rest now, that I was still right outside if she needed anything. She smiled softly and touched my arm for a brief second. It was not a bold touch. It was light, almost unsure, but I felt it all the same. My body reacted before my mind could stop it. She seemed to notice and pulled her hand back quickly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She said goodnight and went into her room. The door closed gently. I stood there for a second longer, staring at the door like it might open again. Then I walked back to the couch, my thoughts louder than ever. Sleep did not come easy. When it finally did, it was shallow. Morning light woke me before the alarm on my phone. The house looked different in daylight. Softer, less heavy. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, trying to clear my head. I heard movement in the kitchen. Laura was already awake. She smiled when she saw me and asked if I slept okay. I said I did. That was not a lie, but not the full truth either. She had made coffee and offered me a cup. We sat at the table like nothing unusual had happened. She looked better in the morning. More color in her face. More energy in her voice. She said she felt much stronger. She joked that maybe she just needed company. I smiled, but my chest tightened at her words. While we drank our coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily saying she was on her way. Laura saw my screen light up and went quiet for a moment. She nodded like she expected it. She thanked me one more time, this time more softly. She said last night meant a lot to her. I told her I was glad she felt better. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door again. This time, the moment felt even heavier. Before I opened it, she looked at me and said something I did not expect. She said some connections happen when you are not looking for them, and that sometimes they can be confusing. I did not know how to answer that. I just nodded and stepped outside as Emily's car pulled into the driveway. As I watched Emily get out and smile at me, I realized something had already changed, and I was not sure how to go back to how things were before. Emily hugged me the moment she stepped inside. She thanked me for staying with her mom, her voice full of relief. I hugged her back, but my body felt stiff, like it was still holding on to the night before. Laura stood a few steps behind Emily, smiling calmly, like everything was normal. If I did not know better, I would have believed it too. Emily went to check on her mom, asking questions, touching her forehead, making sure she was really okay. Laura answered lightly, telling her she felt much better and that I had been very kind. She said it in a simple way, but her eyes met mine for a second longer than needed. Then she looked away. We sat together for breakfast. The three of us. The table felt smaller than usual. Emily talked about her long shift at work, not noticing the tension that sat between her mom and me. I nodded and listened, but my mind kept drifting back to the hallway, the quiet, the touch on my arm. After breakfast, Emily said she wanted to take her mom to a follow-up appointment later in the day. Laura said she would be fine and that Emily should rest first. Emily then looked at me and asked if I could stay a little longer before heading home. I said yes, even though part of me wanted to leave right away. Emily went to take a shower. That left Laura and me alone again in the living room. The silence returned, heavier than before. She asked if I was okay. I said I was. She nodded, like she knew that was not the full truth. She told me she hoped nothing she said last night made me uncomfortable. Her voice was careful. I told her I understood she was scared and did not want to be alone. That part was true, but not all of it. She looked relieved, but also a little sad. She said she admired how loyal I was to Emily. She said not many people would stay so grounded in a confusing moment. That word again, confusing. It felt like she was naming something we were both trying not to say. Emily came back into the room, and the moment ended. Soon after, I told them I should head out. Emily kissed me goodbye and said she would call me later. Laura thanked me one last time and told me to drive safe. As I walked to my car, I felt like I was carrying something invisible with me. Something I could not share. The drive home was quiet. I turned the radio off because I needed silence to think. Over the next few days, life tried to go back to normal. Emily and I talked like we always did. We laughed, we planned things. But something inside me stayed alert. I caught myself thinking about Laura at random moments, wondering how she was feeling, wondering if she thought about that night too. Then it happened again. Emily asked me if I could stop by her mom's house one afternoon. Laura had forgotten some paperwork, and Emily was running late. I hesitated only for a second before saying yes. I told myself it was harmless. When Laura opened the door, she looked surprised, then pleased. She said she did not expect it to be me. The house was bright with afternoon light. It felt safer in the daytime, but the tension was still there, quiet and waiting. We talked while I helped her look for the papers. Our conversations felt easier now, more natural. Too natural. She laughed more. She looked at me like she knew me better than before. At one point, our hands brushed as we reached for the same folder. This time, neither of us pulled away right away. She apologized softly and stepped back. My heart was beating fast again. I realized then that this was not just about one night. Something was growing, slowly, in the spaces between us. When I finally left, she stood at the door watching me. I knew I was standing at a line that was becoming harder to see, and I was not sure how long I could pretend it was not there. I tried to create distance after that afternoon. I answered Emily's calls. I showed up when we had plans. I reminded myself who I loved and why. Still, the feeling did not fade. It waited quietly, like it knew I could not ignore it forever. A week later, Emily told me she had to leave town for 2 nights for work. She asked if I could check on her mom while she was gone. My first instinct was to say no, I almost did. But then I imagined Laura alone again, in that quiet house. I told myself this was about responsibility, not desire. So I said yes. The first night was calm. I stopped by, made sure Laura had dinner, and stayed for a short visit. We talked like friends. Careful friends. When I left, I felt proud of myself for keeping things simple. The second night was different. It started raining hard just as I arrived. The sky was dark, and the sound of rain filled the house. Laura looked tired again, not sick, just worn down. She thanked me for coming and said she did not expect the storm. I told her I could stay until it slowed down. The power went out an hour later. We lit a few candles. The house looked smaller in the soft light. The rain hit the windows loudly. Laura sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. I sat on the chair across from her. We talked about Emily, about how much she worried. Laura smiled and said Emily got that from her. Then she grew quiet. She said there was something she wanted to say but did not know if she should. My chest tightened. I told her she could speak freely. That was a mistake. She said she felt seen around me, that she had not felt that way in a long time. She said it scared her, but pretending it was not there scared her more. She made it clear she did not want to hurt Emily. She said that mattered to her more than anything. I did not speak right away. I felt like my heart was pulling in 2 directions. I told her I felt something too, but that it could not go anywhere, that some lines existed for a reason. My voice shook when I said it. She nodded slowly. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. She said she respected that. She said she just needed honesty. The room felt heavy, but also clear in a painful way. The rain slowed. The power came back on. The moment passed, but it left a mark. When I stood to leave, she stood too. We were close, closer than before. For a second, I thought she might reach for me. She did not. Instead, she said thank you for being strong when she could not be. I walked out into the wet night, feeling like I had just survived something, or maybe lost something I never should have touched. The next morning, Emily called me, excited to come home. She told me she loved me. I said it back. But as I hung up, I realized the hardest part was still ahead. Because choosing the right thing did not make the feelings disappear. And I did not know what would happen the next time I saw Laura. Emily came home that evening, smiling and full of energy. She hugged me like she always did, tight and warm like I was her safe place. I held her, breathing her in, trying to quiet the storm inside me. I told myself this was where I belonged, with her. In this moment. A few days passed before I saw Laura again. Emily invited me over for dinner, like nothing had ever shifted. I almost made an excuse not to go, but that felt like running, so I went. The house looked the same, clean, quiet, familiar. But it felt different now, like every room remembered something I was trying to forget. Laura greeted us kindly. She kept her distance, polite and calm. If I had not known better, I would have thought I imagined everything. Dinner was normal. We talked about work, about plans, about small things that did not matter. Emily laughed. Laura smiled. I watched them both and felt the weight of what could be lost if I made the wrong choice. After dinner, Emily went outside to take a call. That left Laura and me alone again, just like before. The silence returned, but this time it was softer, not heavy, not dangerous. Laura looked at me and nodded slightly like she was acknowledging something without opening it again. She told me she was doing better, that she had started filling her days instead of letting the quiet take over. I told her I was glad. She said she wanted me to know something. That night in the rain helped her see clearly. Not about me, but about herself. She said feeling seen reminded her she was still alive, still capable of connection, and that she needed to build that in healthier ways. Hearing that felt like air filling my lungs again. I realized I had been holding my breath for days. She told me she was proud of me. For choosing what mattered. For protecting Emily, even when it hurt. I thanked her. That was all that needed to be said. Emily came back inside, and the moment ended without tension this time. Just quiet understanding. On the drive home, Emily reached for my hand. She told me she appreciated how much I had helped her mom. She said it made her love me even more. I squeezed her hand and felt something settle inside me. Weeks passed, then months. Life moved forward. Emily and I grew closer, stronger, more honest. Laura stayed part of our lives, but the boundaries stayed clear, respectful, safe. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about how close I came to crossing a line, how easy it would have been to mistake comfort for destiny. I learned something important from that night. Not every strong feeling is meant to be followed. Some feelings exist to teach you who you are when no one is watching. I learned that love is not just about what feels good in the moment. It is about what you protect when it would be easier not to. And every time I think back to that night, to the question she asked at the door, I know my answer shaped everything that came after. I stayed. But I also knew when to leave.